Trains are sitting on tracks idling for hours at a time, and neighbors are worried about the health and environmental effects. Factfinder investigator Josie Sturman digs into lax regulation and loopholes, which critics say allow trains to spew emissions into neighborhoods across the country.
We never really thought we'd be homeowners.
For Caitlin Hilliard and Ben Weinberg, it was the American dream come true until they realized their neighbor was a nightmare.
When they're sitting out there idling, what's it like?
Sometimes it's like sleeping inside a factory.
The couple live about 300 feet, the same distance as 20 parking spaces, from a spot where trains are often stationed for hours.
We write down the date, the day of the week, the time it arrives.
Ben and Caitlin started tracking trains in a detailed database after noticing the recurring problem. Because while they knew about the tracks before they bought the house and expected trains running by, over time they realized many would end up standing still with their engines running, something that's often done to keep the train's fluids warm and crews comfortable. Just last year, the pair charted more than 400 trains they say idled outside their townhome community. One locomotive Caitlin and Ben recorded sat idling for more than 30 hours.
We shouldn't be the ones monitoring this railroad situation. Somebody who actually has some power, like the government, should be monitoring it.
But the feds aren't specifically tracking idling trains, despite fears and frustration reported in cities across the nation. Our national investigative team wanted to take an even deeper look into the problem. We dug through blocked crossing data from the Federal Railroad Administration dating back to 2019 and discovered dozens of complaints that mention idling, from a train sitting with its engines on for 3 days in Nashville to a locomotive idling and popping at all hours in southern Georgia. Health concerns are also highlighted in complaints from Alabama to Illinois and Texas. They're echoed loudly in California, where our team obtained complaints specifically about idling trains, tracked by a state agency focused on curbing pollution and fighting climate change. In that data, there's talk of toxic smoke and diesel fumes causing breathing issues and nausea as trains park for days or weeks at a time, idling and impacting neighbors.
I just worry about the long-term health implications of that.
Studies have found people living near rail lines and rail yards have lowered lifespans, increased asthma, heart and lung disease rates, and a risk of cancer because of the exposure to particulate matter that comes from train emissions. But despite the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, saying it's well aware of the health impacts of train emissions from idling, critics say the agency hasn't done enough to stop it.
We continue to suffer.
That's Yvette Torres with the People's Collective for Environmental Justice, who testified virtually in a Senate hearing last July on behalf of 50 groups nationwide.
We need standards that are higher and better than the 2008 standards.
The current EPA standards from 2008 sound good on paper. They say any locomotive or engine made after 2015 has to be equipped with idling control systems that shut off engines after 30 minutes. But experts testified very few of them have been made.
We've made strong commitments.
Ian Jeffries, the leader of the rail lobby, says companies have invested more than $1 billion to modernize. But it can't happen overnight.
It's got to be done in a way that can allow us to continue to operate, serve our customers, serve our communities, and that the production market can actually handle.
States have also been long powerless to regulate trains because of federal law, says David Pettit with the Natural Resources Defense Council.
Those neighbors are paying with their health and their lives in order to support railroad profits.
The Association of American Railroads, the industry lobbying group that testified on the Hill, wouldn't speak on camera. Their rep told our national investigative team trains that idle for an extended time are not in the community's or industry's interest, and that railroads have made significant efforts to reduce idling, implemented extensive measures to reduce rail yard emissions, and improve air quality for nearby communities. For its part, the EPA declined an interview, but told us it's been engaging with stakeholders since 2022, evaluating how best to address rail emissions, and is developing a set of options and recommendations for regulatory action.
What I would tell rail yard neighbors is to beat on EPA as often and as hard as they can.
Caitlin Hilliard and Ben Weinberg are banging the drum everywhere they can.
You should not be treating human beings like this, especially these companies have so much money.
Union Pacific, that's the company whose trains routinely idle outside that couple's home, says it has been using that spot for years with few complaints or issues. Still, the company says it is taking steps to address their concerns, including planting trees to serve as a buffer. We want to hear from you. You can email us or call one of our investigators at the number on your screen, or to find answers to any of your questions on the next Factfinder Investigates.